Most men today are walking around like lost warriors in a world that's forgotten what true strength looks like. You've been told that masculinity is toxic, that showing emotion makes you weak, that being a man means either being a caveman or apologizing for your existence. But what if I told you that ancient philosophers cracked the code on authentic masculinity over 2,000 years ago? The Stoics didn't just survive in a brutal world, they thrived and led empires while maintaining unshakable inner peace. Today, you're going to discover how Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus and Seneca can transform you from a confused modern man into an unstoppable force of nature who commands respect without demanding it, feels deeply without drowning, and leads without needing to prove anything to anyone. Picture this scenario. Two men face the same brutal rejection. One crumbles into a pit of self-doubt and revenge fantasies. The other feels the sting but walks away with his head high and his purpose intact. What separates these two men isn't their capacity to feel pain. It's something far more powerful that ancient warriors understood, but modern men have forgotten completely. You see, there's a dangerous myth floating around that strong men don't feel emotions. This lie has destroyed more masculine potential than any feminist agenda ever could. The truth is that the most powerful men in history felt everything intensely, but they had discovered something that made them virtually indestructible to emotional attacks. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire during its most challenging period. He faced betrayal, loss, and constant criticism. Yet his personal writings reveal a man who felt deeply but never let those feelings control his actions. He had cracked a code that modern psychology is only now beginning to understand. The secret isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's really about building what I call emotional armor that actually makes you more sensitive to genuine experiences while making you, bulletproof to the garbage that used to destroy your peace. Most men today are honestly walking around emotionally naked in a world full of sharp objects. Every criticism cuts deep. Every rejection leaves a scar. Every failure becomes a story about their inadequacy. But what if I told you that you could feel everything without being damaged by anything? Now, this isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about developing a superpower that allows you to experience life fully while maintaining unshakable inner stability. The strongest men don't avoid emotional storms. They learn to dance in the rain without getting swept away. Here's what most people don't understand about emotional resilience. It's not built by avoiding difficult situations, It's forged in the fire of challenging experiences while maintaining your core identity. It's about becoming someone who can take any hit and keep moving forward. The ancient Stoics called this the discipline of perception. They understood that events themselves are neutral. It's our interpretation and reaction that gives them power over us. When you master this principle, criticism becomes feedback, rejection becomes redirection, and failure becomes education. So here's tip number 1 out of 10 that will completely transform your relationship with emotions and make you unshakable in any situation. The emotional armor paradox is about understanding that true strength comes from feeling everything but reacting to nothing that doesn't serve your highest good. There's a billionaire who never checks his stock prices, a champion fighter who doesn't read what critics say about his performance, and a successful entrepreneur who honestly couldn't care less about his competitors' moves. These men share a secret that gives them an unfair advantage in life, and it's actually the complete opposite of what society teaches us about caring and success. You've been programmed to believe that caring about everything makes you a good person. You worry about strangers' opinions. You stress about outcomes beyond your control. You exhaust yourself trying to manage things that were never yours to manage in the first place. But really, what if this approach is actually killing your effectiveness and stealing your peace? The ancient Stoics discovered something, revolutionary about human psychology. They learned that your power is directly proportional to how strategically you choose what deserves your mental energy. Most men scatter their focus across 1,000 meaningless concerns and then wonder why they feel powerless and anxious. Epictetus, a man of humble beginnings who rose to become one of history's most influential philosophers, imparted a simple yet profound principle to his students. He divided all aspects of life into two distinct categories, those within our control and those beyond it. Through this lens, he discovered that all human suffering stems from the futile attempt to control what simply cannot be controlled. Now, think back to the last moment when you felt genuinely stressed or angry. I bet it was because you were trying to exert control over something that was never yours to command. Perhaps it was someone else's opinion of you, or the outcome of a situation you had a hand in, but couldn't ultimately dictate. Or maybe it was the behavior of others, who, in truth, have their own free will and agendas. Now, here's where things get really interesting. The men who seem to effortlessly draw success and respect have truly mastered the art of what we call strategic indifference. They care deeply about their own actions, decisions, and character, yet they remain completely indifferent to everything else. This isn't about being cold-hearted, it's about being efficient. Now, when you stop wasting energy on things beyond your control, you suddenly have massive amounts of mental and emotional resources available for the things that actually matter. Your performance improves, your relationships get better, and well, your peace of mind becomes unshakable. Most people think that caring about everything makes them compassionate, but it actually makes them ineffective. You cannot help anyone if you're drowning in anxiety about outcomes you cannot control. And you cannot lead if you're paralyzed by concerns about what others might think. Strategic indifference is about becoming selectively sensitive. You develop laser focus on your circle of influence while becoming completely immune to the chaos outside that circle. This, in turn, creates a magnetic presence that naturally attracts the right opportunities and people. You know, the paradox is that when you stop needing specific outcomes, you become more likely to achieve them. And funny enough, when you stop caring about others' approval, you actually become more attractive. When you stop trying to control external circumstances, that's when you gain more influence over your actual results. So here's tip number 2 out of 10 that will honestly revolutionize your relationship with stress and dramatically increase your effectiveness. The power of strategic indifference teaches you to care deeply about what matters while, at the same time, becoming completely immune to everything else. Every great man has felt the fire of rage burning in his chest. The difference between those who build empires and those who destroy their own lives isn't whether they feel anger. It's really about what they do with that raw, explosive energy when it threatens to consume everything in its path. You know, you've been told that anger is always destructive, that good men don't get angry, that rage is toxic and should be suppressed at all costs. But what if I told you that some of the most powerful leaders in history learned to transform their anger into unstoppable motivation and, well, laser-focused action? The ancient Stoics, they didn't teach men to eliminate anger. Instead, they taught them to harness it. They understood that anger is pure energy, and much like fire, it can either burn down your house or power your entire life. The key really is learning to channel that energy rather than letting it channel you. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about managing anger, not because he was naturally calm, but because he felt it intensely. He developed techniques to transform rage into clarity, frustration into focus, and burning resentment into burning determination. He turned his anger into fuel for becoming the leader the world needed. Here's what most people don't understand about anger. It's actually a signal that something important to you is being threatened or violated. The emotion itself contains valuable information about your values and boundaries, but most men either explode destructively or implode with suppressed rage, missing the opportunity to use this energy constructively. The Stoic approach to anger is revolutionary. Instead of reacting immediately when someone triggers you, you pause and ask yourself what this anger is trying to tell you. Is it revealing a boundary that needs to be set? Is it highlighting an area where you need to take action? Is it showing you something about yourself that needs attention? When you transform anger into motivation, something magical happens. That burning energy becomes fuel for discipline. That sense of injustice becomes drive for creating positive change. That feeling of being wronged becomes determination to prove your worth through excellence rather than revenge. Think about the last time you felt truly angry. Instead of lashing out or shutting down, what if you had channeled that energy into working on your goals? What if you had used that fire to fuel your training, your business, or your personal development? What if your anger became the catalyst for your greatest achievements? The most successful men I know have learned to welcome anger as a messenger, rather than fearing it as an enemy. They've discovered that rage, when properly channeled, becomes rocket fuel for extraordinary performance and unshakable determination. So here's tip number 3 out of 10 that will completely change how you handle anger and transform your emotional reactions into unstoppable momentum. Rage as rocket fuel teaches you to harness the explosive energy of anger and direct it toward building the life you want, rather than destroying what you have. Walk into any room and you can immediately spot him. He's not the loudest person there. He's not desperately trying to impress anyone. He's not chasing attention or approval. Yet somehow, everyone is drawn to him like metal to a magnet. People seek his opinion, want his approval, and naturally follow his lead. What creates this invisible force that makes certain men irresistibly attractive to others? You've been taught that leadership means convincing people to follow you. That influence requires persuasion and manipulation. That power comes from having something others want. But the most magnetic leaders operate from a completely different paradigm that makes traditional leadership tactics look amateur and desperate. The secret lies in something the Stoics called self-sufficiency. But this isn't about being antisocial or independent to the point of isolation. It's about developing such a strong sense of self that you don't need anything from anyone else to feel complete. This creates a gravitational pull that naturally attracts everything you actually want. Marcus Aurelius never had to demand respect. Seneca never had to beg for influence. Epictetus never had to prove his worth. They had discovered that the less you need from others, the more they want to give you. The less you seek approval, the more approval you naturally receive. The less you chase power, the more power flows to you. Think about the people in your life who you find most attractive and compelling. I guarantee they're not the ones constantly seeking your validation. They're not the ones trying to impress you with their achievements. They're the ones who seem completely content with themselves while being genuinely interested in others. This principle creates what I call the leadership magnet effect. When you develop internal stability and self-respect, you become a source of strength that others naturally gravitate toward. You become the calm center in the storm that everyone else wants to be near. But here's the paradox that most men miss. You can't fake this quality. You can't pretend to be self-sufficient while desperately craving external validation. People can sense neediness from a mile away, and it repels them faster than anything else you could possibly do. The leadership magnet effect is built through daily practices that strengthen your relationship with yourself. It's about becoming someone you genuinely respect and admire. It's about developing skills, character, and purpose that make you valuable to yourself first. When you stop looking to others for your sense of worth, something magical happens. You become more attractive because you're not trying to be attractive. You become more influential because you're not trying to influence. You become more powerful because you're not grasping for power. The strongest leaders in history understood that true power comes from having nothing to prove and everything to offer. They built their influence by becoming genuinely valuable people rather than by trying to convince others they were valuable. This magnetic quality isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being comfortable with yourself while remaining open to growth. It's about being secure in your own skin while still being genuinely interested in others and their success. So here's tip number 4 out of 10 that will transform you from someone who chases influence to someone who naturally attracts it. The leadership magnet effect teaches you that when you need nothing from others, you become irresistibly attractive to everyone. There's a practice so powerful that it can instantly cure procrastination, eliminate petty concerns, and give you the courage to live authentically. Yet most people avoid it like the plague because it forces them to confront the one truth everyone knows but nobody wants to acknowledge. This practice has been used by warriors, emperors, and philosophers to gain superhuman clarity and fearlessness. You spend your days worried about trivial matters. You postpone important conversations. You delay pursuing your dreams. You waste time on meaningless activities. You avoid taking risks that could transform your life. But what if I told you that there's a way to instantly gain perspective on what truly matters and what's just noise? The ancient Stoics had a daily practice called memento mori, which means remember you must die. This wasn't, morbid or depressing at all. In fact, it was the most liberating and motivating practice they knew. By regularly contemplating their mortality, they gained a certain clarity about what deserved their limited time and energy. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journal that death is nothing to fear because, it's simply a return to the state we were in before we were born. He used this awareness to make bold decisions, speak truthfully, and live according to his values rather than other people's expectations. Think about, how your behavior changes when you truly understand that your time is limited. Suddenly that argument with your friends seems, pointless. That fear of starting your business just feels insignificant. That worry about what strangers think honestly becomes laughable. Death, in a way, puts everything in perspective. But here's what most people don't understand about mortality meditation. It doesn't make you depressed or hopeless at all. In fact, it makes you more alive. When you realize that your days are numbered, you stop wasting them on activities that don't align with your values and goals. The awareness of death, believe it or not, is the ultimate cure for procrastination. When you truly understand that you have limited time, you just stop putting off important conversations, meaningful projects, and necessary changes. You start living with urgency and purpose. This practice also, quite frankly, eliminates the fear of failure and embarrassment. When you remember that everyone who judges you will eventually be dead, including yourself, their opinions really lose their power over you. You become willing to take risks and pursue your authentic path. Death awareness creates fearlessness in all areas of life. You stop avoiding difficult conversations because, you realize that avoiding them is more costly than having them. You stop postponing your dreams because you understand that someday is not guaranteed. The Stoics understood that death is not the opposite of life. It's actually what gives life meaning and urgency. Without the awareness of mortality, we drift through our days without purpose or intensity. But with it, we live with clarity and courage. Most men live as if they have unlimited time. They postpone important decisions, avoid necessary risks, and waste years on activities that don't serve their highest good. But when you make death your daily advisor, you gain the clarity to focus on what truly matters. This isn't about being morbid or obsessing over death. It's about using mortality as a tool for living more fully. It's about letting the awareness of your limited time inspire you to make the most of every moment you have. So here's tip number 5 out of 10 that will give you unshakable perspective and eliminate fear from your decision-making. Death as your daily advisor teaches you to use mortality awareness as fuel for living courageously and authentically. There's a man who owns 3 sports cars but dreams of a 4th. Another who has a 7-figure bank account but still feels financially insecure. A third who's dating a beautiful woman but can't stop thinking about other possibilities. These men share a common prison that keeps them perpetually unsatisfied despite having everything most people want. You've been programmed to believe that getting what you want will make you happy. That acquiring more will solve your problems. That satisfaction comes from having rather than being. But what if this entire approach to life is actually the source of your suffering rather than the solution to it? The ancient Stoics discovered something that modern psychology is only now beginning to understand. Your happiness isn't determined by what you have. It's determined by the relationship between what you want and what you have. This means you can become instantly wealthy by adjusting your desires rather than accumulating more possessions. Seneca was one of the richest men in Rome, yet he practiced voluntary discomfort and regularly gave away his wealth. He understood that true power comes from wanting what you have rather than having what you want. He had discovered the secret to unshakable contentment. So think about the last time you felt truly satisfied. I guarantee it wasn't when you acquired something new. It was when you appreciated something you already had. The feeling of satisfaction, you see, comes from gratitude, not accumulation. But most men chase acquisition while neglecting appreciation. The discipline of desires isn't about living in poverty or denying yourself pleasure. Rather, it's about becoming selective about what you allow yourself to want. It's about distinguishing between genuine needs and manufactured desires. And honestly, it's about finding freedom through voluntary limitation. When you master this discipline, something miraculous happens. You become genuinely wealthy because you want less than you have. You become instantly powerful because you're not dependent on external circumstances for your happiness. And you become truly free because you're not enslaved by endless cravings. Most people think that wanting things motivates them to achieve more. But excessive desire actually creates anxiety, dissatisfaction, and even desperation. It makes you needy and frankly unattractive. It steals your peace and clouds your judgment. In the end, it turns you into a slave to your own appetites. The Stoic approach to desire is, revolutionary. Instead of trying to get everything you want, you learn to want only what serves your highest good. Rather than accumulating possessions, you accumulate contentment. And instead of always chasing more, you begin to truly appreciate what you have. This doesn't mean you stop growing or achieving, not at all. It means you pursue goals from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. You work toward objectives because you choose to, not because you feel desperate or incomplete without them. The discipline of desires creates a magnetic presence that naturally attracts opportunities and people. When you're not needy or desperate, you become more attractive. When you're content with what you have, you make better decisions about what you pursue. So here's tip number 6 out of 10 that will free you from the prison of endless wanting and give you immediate access to genuine satisfaction. The discipline of desires teaches you that wanting less gives you more power than any amount of money or status ever could. Every man who has achieved anything meaningful has a graveyard of failures behind him. The difference between those who quit and those who eventually succeed isn't that successful people fail less. It's that they've learned to extract value from every setback and use each failure as fuel for their next attempt. You've been taught that failure is something to avoid at all costs, that making mistakes means you're inadequate, that setbacks are proof you're not cut out for success. But what if I told you that your failures contain more valuable information than your successes ever could? The ancient Stoics had a radically different relationship with failure. They saw every setback as a teacher, every mistake as valuable feedback, and every defeat as preparation for future victory. They understood that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the raw material from which success is built. Marcus Aurelius faced military defeats, political betrayals, and personal tragedies. Instead of being destroyed by these experiences, he used them to develop wisdom, strength, and character. He transformed every failure into a stepping stone toward becoming the leader history remembers. Think about your biggest failure. What did it teach you about yourself? What skills did it force you to develop? What weaknesses did it reveal that you could address? What strategies did it prove were ineffective? That failure contains a goldmine of intelligence that can fuel your next success. The problem isn't that you fail. The problem is that you waste the education that failure provides. You focus on the emotional pain rather than the practical lessons. You see failure as a verdict rather than as data. You let setbacks define you rather than refine you. But here's what the most successful men understand about failure. It's not what happens to you that matters. It's what you do with what happens to you. Every failure is either a stepping stone or a stumbling block, depending on how you choose to use it. When you reframe failure as intelligence gathering, everything changes. You stop taking setbacks personally and start seeing them as valuable feedback. You stop avoiding risks and start embracing challenges. You stop fearing failure and start, mining it for insights. The Stoics called this the discipline of desire. They trained themselves to want whatever happened to them because they knew how to extract value from any situation. They understood that every experience, good or bad, could contribute to their growth and success. This mindset creates an unfair advantage in life. While others are paralyzed by the fear of failure, you're excited by the learning opportunities it provides. While others quit after setbacks, you're energized by the intelligence you've gained. While others see failure as final, you see it as fuel. You know, the most successful entrepreneurs, athletes, and leaders all share this relationship with failure. They fail fast, fail often, and they fail forward. They've learned to extract maximum value from every setback and use that intelligence to improve their next attempt. Failure also builds the character traits that, honestly, success requires. It develops resilience, humility, persistence, and those all-important problem-solving skills. It forces you to be creative, adaptable, and resourceful, and it teaches you lessons that no amount of success ever could. So here's tip number 7 out of 10 that will transform your relationship with setbacks and really turn every failure into fuel for future success. Failure as your secret weapon teaches you to reframe every setback as intelligence gathering for your next victory. In a world full of noise, the most powerful men speak in whispers, while others are desperately trying to prove their worth through words. Truly confident men let their actions do the talking. They've discovered that real strength doesn't announce itself, and genuine power doesn't need to be proclaimed. You've been conditioned to believe that confidence means being loud, aggressive, and constantly promoting yourself. That influence requires dominating conversations and always having the last word. That power means making sure everyone knows how important you are. But what if this entire approach actually signals weakness rather than strength? The ancient Stoics understood that true confidence is quiet, steady, and unshakable. It doesn't need external validation because it's built on internal foundation. It doesn't require others to diminish so you can shine. It doesn't depend on constant proof or performance. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the known world. Yet his personal writings reveal a man of remarkable humility and self-reflection. He didn't need to tell people he was important. His actions and character spoke louder than any words ever could. Think about the people you most respect and admire. I guarantee they're not the ones constantly talking about their achievements. They're not the ones who need to be the center of attention. They're the ones who listen more than they speak and observe more than they perform. Quiet confidence is magnetic because it's rare. In a world full of people desperately seeking attention, someone who is comfortable with silence stands out. In a culture of constant self-promotion, someone who lets their work speak for itself becomes irresistibly attractive. Now, this doesn't mean being passive or invisible. Instead, it means being, selectively expressive. It means speaking when you have something valuable to say, rather than just speaking to fill the silence. It means acting with purpose, rather than performing simply for applause. The Quiet Confidence Code is, built on 3 foundational principles. First, you know your worth without needing others to confirm it. Second, you're more interested in understanding others than in being understood yourself. And third, you prove your value through consistent action rather than, say, convincing words. When you master this code, something rather powerful happens. People start seeking your opinion because you don't freely give it. They value your words because you don't waste them, and they respect your presence because you don't demand their attention. Quiet confidence also eliminates the exhausting need to constantly prove yourself. You stop feeling compelled to correct every misconception or win every argument. You become comfortable with being misunderstood because, well, you know who you are. This approach creates natural leadership because, people are drawn to stability and strength. They want to follow someone who is sure of themselves without being arrogant. They want to be around someone who is confident without being cocky. The most successful leaders throughout history have shared this quality. They commanded respect not through volume, but through substance. They influenced others not through manipulation, but through example. They led not through force, but through quiet strength. Quiet confidence is also, honestly, incredibly attractive to the right people. It signals emotional maturity, self-respect, and inner strength. It shows that you're secure enough to let others shine while still maintaining your own presence. So here's tip number 8 out of 10 that will transform you from someone who needs to prove their worth to someone whose worth is undeniable. The Quiet Confidence Code teaches you that the most powerful men speak less, observe more, and never need to prove their worth. While other men are chasing designer clothes, expensive cars, and exclusive memberships to signal their worth, there's a different kind of status that actually attracts genuine respect and admiration. This status symbol can't be bought, stolen, or taken away. It becomes more valuable with time and makes every other achievement more meaningful. You've been programmed to believe that status comes from what you own, where you live, and what you can afford. That respect is earned through material success and external accomplishments. That attractiveness comes from displaying wealth and power. But what if the most magnetic men throughout history drew their power from something completely different? The ancient Stoics understood that true status comes from character, not possessions. They recognized that virtue is the only wealth that can't be lost to market crashes, theft, or changing circumstances. They discovered that developing character is the ultimate investment in your future self. Marcus Aurelius could have indulged in any luxury the Roman Empire could provide. Instead, he chose to develop wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. These qualities made him not just wealthy, but genuinely respected by everyone who knew him, including his enemies. Now think about the men you most admire. You might at first notice their achievements or possessions, but really, what draws you to them is their character. It's their integrity, their reliability, their strength under pressure, their kindness to others, and of course, their ability to do the right thing even when it's difficult. Virtue as a status symbol is, well, revolutionary because it shifts your focus from external validation to internal development. Rather than working to impress others, you work to improve yourself. Instead of chasing approval, you chase excellence. And instead of just building an image, you build character. The 4 cardinal virtues that the Stoics focused on are wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These aren't just abstract concepts, they're actually practical skills that make you more effective in every area of life. Honestly, they're the foundation upon which all other success is built. So wisdom means, well, continuously learning and making good decisions. Justice, on the other hand, means treating others fairly and standing up for what's right. Courage is all about facing challenges and, taking necessary risks. And temperance, well, that's having self-control and living with balance. When you develop these qualities, something magical happens. You become the kind of person that others naturally want to be around. You become trustworthy, reliable, and honestly, valuable. You become someone worth following, partnering with, and learning from. Virtue also creates unshakable confidence because it's based on who you are rather than what you have. Market conditions can't destroy your character. Economic downturns can't eliminate your integrity. And changing trends, well, they can't make your courage obsolete. You know, the most attractive quality in any man is strength of character. It's honestly more impressive than any car, more valuable than any bank account, and more lasting than any achievement. In fact, it's the foundation upon which all other success is built. Character is also the ultimate competitive advantage. In a world where, well, most people are focused on shortcuts and quick fixes, someone who consistently does the right thing really stands out. In a culture of moral relativism, someone with clear principles becomes a beacon. Virtue creates a positive cycle in your life. The better your character, the better your relationships. The stronger your integrity, the more opportunities you attract. And the more reliable you become, the more people want to work with you and support your goals. So, here's tip number 9 out of 10 that will make you genuinely attractive and respected regardless of your material circumstances. Virtue, as the ultimate status symbol, teaches you that developing character becomes more attractive than any material possession. Deep within every man lies an unassailable stronghold that no external force can penetrate. This fortress doesn't require walls, weapons, or guards. It's built from something far more powerful than stone and steel, and once constructed, it makes you virtually indestructible to life's inevitable storms. You've spent your entire life trying to control the external world. You've worked to impress others, manipulate circumstances, and avoid difficult situations. You've built your sense of security on things that can be taken away, changed, or destroyed. But what if there was a way to become completely unshakable regardless of what happens around you? The ancient Stoics discovered that true security comes from within. You know, they understood that external circumstances are temporary and unpredictable, but your inner character and response to those circumstances is entirely under your control. They built what they called an inner citadel that no enemy could breach. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, betrayal, and loss. Yet he remained calm, focused, and effective because he had built an inner fortress that external events couldn't penetrate. He had learned to separate his peace from his circumstances and his worth from his situation. The inner fortress technique is built on 3 unshakable foundations. First, your core identity is based on your character and values, not on external achievements or other people's opinions. Second, your emotional stability comes from your thoughts and interpretations, not from circumstances. And third, your security comes from your ability to adapt and respond, not from controlling outcomes. When you build this inner fortress, something incredible happens. You become immune to the emotional ups and downs that destroy most people's effectiveness. You maintain clarity during chaos. You stay focused during storms. You remain strong when everyone around you is falling apart. This doesn't mean you become cold or disconnected. It means you become stable and reliable. You become the person others turn to during difficult times. You become the leader people follow because they know you won't be shaken by temporary setbacks. The inner fortress is constructed through daily practices that strengthen your mental and emotional foundation. You study philosophy to develop wisdom. You practice gratitude to maintain perspective. You challenge yourself to build resilience. You reflect on your values to maintain clarity. This inner strength creates an attractive presence that, naturally draws opportunities and relationships. People want to be around someone who is stable and secure. They want to work with someone who, doesn't panic under pressure. And they want to follow someone who remains calm during storms. The inner fortress technique also eliminates the need for external validation. When your security comes from within, you really don't need others to approve of your choices. When your worth is based on character rather than achievement, you don't need to constantly prove yourself. This inner stability allows you to take bigger risks because, honestly, you're not afraid of failure. You can pursue ambitious goals because your identity isn't dependent on outcomes. You can love deeply because you're not afraid of loss. And you can lead boldly because you're not afraid of criticism. The most successful men throughout history have all possessed this inner fortress. They remained effective during crises because their foundation was unshakable. They made bold decisions because honestly their security came from within. And they inspired others because their strength was genuine. Building your inner fortress is the ultimate act of self-respect. It's taking responsibility for your own emotional state and refusing to let external circumstances determine your internal condition. It's about becoming the master of your own experience. So here's tip number 10 out of 10 that will make you unshakable regardless of what life throws at you. The inner fortress technique teaches you to build an unassailable core that no external circumstance can penetrate or destroy. You now possess the 10 principles that have guided the strongest men throughout history. These aren't just philosophical concepts to think about, they're practical tools to implement immediately. The emotional armor paradox shows you how to feel everything while being hurt by nothing. Strategic indifference teaches you to focus your energy only on what you can control. Rage becomes your rocket fuel when properly channeled. Your leadership magnetism grows when you need nothing from others. Death as your daily advisor gives you clarity about what truly matters. Disciplining your desires creates instant wealth and freedom. Every failure becomes your secret weapon for future success. Quiet confidence attracts more respect than any performance ever could. Virtue becomes your ultimate status symbol that can never be taken away. And your inner fortress makes you unshakable regardless of external circumstances. But knowledge without action is, well, worthless. These principles only work if you actually work them. Start with one technique that resonates most strongly with you and, practice it daily until it becomes second nature. Then add another and another. Build your masculine character one principle at a time. The world needs men who embody these qualities, men who feel deeply but react wisely, men who focus on what matters while ignoring what doesn't, men who lead through strength of character rather than force of personality, and men who remain steady when everyone else is frankly falling apart. You have everything you need to become this man. The ancient Stoics have given you the blueprint. Now it's time to build the fortress of your character and, step into the masculine power that has been waiting for you all along. The question isn't whether you can do this, the question is whether you will. Your future self is in fact waiting for your decision.